Hello and welcome. Today, I'm going to do a movie recap regarding a 2006 science fiction, action thriller film entitled Children of Men. The film takes place in 2027, humanity has been incapable of reproducing, and it's now on the brink of extinction. This has left society on the brink of collapse. Warning. Spoilers ahead. I hope you enjoy the movie recap. The movie begins with our protagonist, Theo Farron, played by Clive Owen, entering a bakery to get some coffee. He then hears the news on the TV that the youngest person in the world recently passed away. He was attacked by a fan for not wanting to give out his autograph. Everyone in the shop seems to be devastated by this tragedy, but Theo doesn't look too concerned. As he leaves the bakery and adds whiskey to his coffee, when suddenly there is an explosion from the shop. Thankfully, he didn't get hurt. With an annoying ringing in his ears, and still unconcerned, he goes to work as if nothing had happened. In the office, almost nobody is working, since they're too busy crying over the loss of the world's youngest person. Theo takes this as an opportunity, as he lies to his boss, and tells him he is too dismayed over the news, so he asks permission to finish his work at home. The train he's taken is constantly being thrown by stones, from rebels and indigents. It is also shown that there are many cages, filled with refugees, and guarded by the cops on the station. This is because the United Kingdom is one of the few remaining nations with a functioning government, which has caused illegally entering the nation. This still doesn't concern Theo. Outside the station field, Theo meets with his old friend, Jasper Palmer, played by Michael Caine. After a hug, they get in Jasper's car, and drive to his place in the countryside, while discussing the bakery explosion, considering the idea may have been the government itself. They then see a bus pass by, taking refugees to a camp in Bexhill. Jasper's place is hidden in the woods. Jasper makes fun of Theo for his lack of love life, and his alcohol problem. He also offers him to come live with him, but Theo turns down the offer. Through photos and newspaper clips, we learn that Jasper used to be a political cartoonist, and his wife, Janice, was a photojournalist. These days, Jasper became a hippie and pot dealer, and her wife is in a catatonic state, since she was tortured. He also mentions his main client is an immigration cop at the Bexhill camp, and they argue over the possible existence of the Human Project, a secret scientific organization which are trying to find a cure to humanity's infertility. The next day, as Theo leaves for work, he's kidnapped in the street by a militant group called the Fish's Face Cover. When Theo opens his eyes again, he is in a protected room. And for the first time in 20 years, she sees his ex-wife, Julian Taylor, played by Julianne Moore, who apologizes for the theatrics, but explained that they had to do this to avoid the police. We learn that both Julian and Theo were activists before, but Theo has left that life behind. After explaining they weren't the ones who put the bomb in the bakery, but the government, Julian takes Theo outside for a walk. The reason why she's made him come is that she needs transfer papers for a refugee girl to get to the coast, which they can get them through his cousin, but he turns down the idea. When Julian offers monetary compensation, he says he doesn't need her money, which is an obvious lie. Since he isn't collaborating, Julian's men cover his face again, and take him out of their place. While on the van, one of the fishes warns Theo that this has never happened, and that they'll always be watching him. Another one gives him a paper sign to hang on the Camden tube, in case he changes his mind. Theo was then thrown in the middle of the street, with some changes for the bus. Later on, a fancy car picks him up, and takes him to his cousin's private residence. It seems Theo does end up changing his mind, since he pays his cousin a visit, Nigel, played by Danny Houston, who works as a minister of visit. They have lunch together, with the minister's son, who ignores them completely, while playing on a screen, connected directly to his body. After asking his cousin about his wife, Theo asks for the transfer papers, by making up a story that they're for his girlfriend, enable for her to visit her sick brother in Brighton. Nigel points out it's a huge favor, since it's highly controlled. After yelling at his son to take his pills, he asks Theo to follow him to the window, where he tells him that he'll see what he can do. Hours later, he was at a pub and is approached by one of the fishes, Luke, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. He explains that he did get the papers, but they're joint, meaning he will have to escort the girl, a task he'll accept if he's paid more. Luke accepts the deal because Julian thinks highly of him. The next day, while he's betting on the dog race, he is once again approached by the fishes. He follows her outside, and onto a bus, where Julian is waiting for him. She asks about the papers, before reminiscing about the old days, but they end up arguing over the way they handled the passing of their child, Dylan, and eventually separated. When they reach their stop, they hurry out of the bus, and Theo takes the chance to ask why he was chosen. Julian says she trusts him. He also asked what will happen to them, and Julian says she doesn't know. They get in the car, where Theo is introduced to a woman named Miriam, and Key, played by Claire Hope Ashidi, the girl he'll be escorting. He then gets some sleep throughout the drive. As he wakes up, Luke informs him that they are already in Canterbury. He and Julian reminisce about their old days as activists, and play a little game with a golf ball. When they're about to reach their destination, they're ambushed by an armed gang. And unfortunately, Julian gets shot. They manage to drive away from the gang, but then it's the police that arrive, and chase them instead. Luke has no other option, but to stop the car. However, when he gets out, he shoots both cops, and drives away. They stop to say their goodbyes to Julian. As the two women cover the body with a shawl, Theo pretends to be unbothered, until he distances himself, and then break down and cry. Luke quickly tells them to get back in the car, so they can leave, before they're caught again. It's nightfall when they reach a Fish's safe house, where the entire group will hold a meeting, to vote for their new leader. Theo asks for a ride to London, but he's told it's too dangerous and he'll have to wait until the next day. After washing up, he talks with one of the fishes, before Miriam comes looking for him, to take him to Key. She takes him to the barn, where he was left alone with Key, who says Julian told her stories of their child, and if things got bad, Theo is the only one she can trust, to take her to the boat, called the Tomorrow. Theo doesn't want anything to do with her, but Key convinces him by taking of her dress, and reveals her secret that she's pregnant. He was shocked, not believing what he's seeing. But they were interrupted by Luke, who takes them all back to the house. They watch the news on the TV. Julian's body has been found, and they're now looking for the people that were with her in the car. An argument starts about what they should do with Key. Theo suggests to make it public, but the fishes don't want to, because the government will take her baby away, but Theo thinks she needs proper care. There's also the matter of the human project being rather difficult to contact, so they may lose their only chance if they don't go to meet that vote. She decides to stay, and have her baby in the safe house. Later that night, Theo can't sleep, so he is awake to hear the noises of people arriving outside. He sneaks around to learn what's going on, and found out that it's the people that attacked them earlier. The ambush had been Luke's plan, so he could become the leader and take control of the baby, to use it as a political tool in their revolution. Theo won't allow this, so he rushes to Key and Miriam's bedroom, to tell them what's going on, and help them escape. They sneak outside, and hides from the guards. They disable two of the car, and enter the third one, which won't start. Theo gets off, and starts pushing it, which gains the attention of the fishes. The men starts going after them, but aren't allowed to shoot, because the girl is in the car. As one of Luke's men go close to them, he points his weapon, but he is hit by the car's door. At the base of the hill, the car gets stuck in mud. So Theo gets out the cart, while Miriam jumpstarts it. They manage to escape the farm, and tells Miriam he knows of a place where they can hide, and takes them to Jasper's house, who receives them with open arms. While having a dinner, they discuss their options. The Human Project's boat will have 2 stops, and neither of them looks good. Winsmore is too far away, which they will not make in time, while the Bexhill is a refugee camp. Jasper thinks that there might be a solution, and tells them to continue to eat, while he gets some things ready. The next morning, Miriam is outside practicing outside similar to yoga, while Key is braiding Janice's hair. Theo approaches her, and asks her about the pregnancy. She's 8 months pregnant, and she doesn't know who the father is. At that moment, Jasper returns with a plan, wherein the group can go to the Bexhill camp, as they will be smuggled inside, so they can get to their boat. Key then accepts Jasper's plan. While Theo is having a drink, he hears Jasper tells the 2 women the story of how Theo and Julian met as protesters, in the middle of a rally by chance, and how their relationship took a bad turn, when they lost their kid to the flu pandemic. The next morning, everyone's woken up by the alarm. They see in the security camera that fishes have found them. Jasper gives them instructions of how to contact his friend, and then sends him to the car, refusing to go with him. He wants to stay, as he will stall Luke's men. Theo drives the girls away, but stops the car, to look at what's going on in the house from afar. The fishes arrive, and not liking Jasper's answers, they shoot him. Theo then drives them away, for good this time. They make it to their meeting point the next day, in an abandoned school. While Key enjoys the swings, Miriam tells Theo about her old job as a midwife, and how she saw the infertility issue affect all her patients little by little. A truck then arrives, with Sid, Jasper's contact. After exchanging password, they get into the truck, and drives away to the refugee camp. While Key has her first contraction on the drive, Miriam informs Sid that it's only car sickness. They make it to the camp, and Sid tells them to put on sad refugee faces, before moving them from the truck, and into a bus filled with refugees, that quickly leaves the area. Soon enough, Key's contractions start getting worse, and by the time they make it to the actual camp, her water breaks. A guard notices her, so Miriam distracts him, by acting as if going through religious mania, so she's taken away to be executed. The guard was about to take Key, so Theo points out that she peed herself, and in disgust, the guard walks away. Theo and Key leave the bus, and join a line, as they eventually released into the city, full of refugees. They look for Mariska, a Romanian woman, that takes them to a safe abandoned building, and gives them a private room, where she can have her baby. Key is having hard time delivering the baby, but Theo guides her and eventually, she gives birth to a healthy baby girl. The next day, Sid comes by to check on them. The city's become a dangerous mess, after a wall blew up and people started to flee, so Sid comes to help them escape. When he sees the baby, he promises that he'll take them to a boat, but Mariska is against this idea, implying he isn't a good man. Sid takes out his gun, then reveals that he knows there's a bounty on their heads, and he plans to sell them off. After Mariska hits him with a stick, the three of them start running away. As they go down a hallway to exit, they get stuck on the door, but manage to escape. Theo finishes Sid off, with a brick to the head. Mariska then guides them to the boat, while around them, a fight starts between the military and the fishes. Mariska then makes them enter a building, and after showing the baby to the owner through a window, they're allowed to enter. There, they rest for a while, and one-off guards inform them that they need to leave in an hour. Minutes later, they put Key on a wheelchair and leave the building. Soon they're found by Luke and his men. He then takes Key and the baby with him, and leaves the other fishes to finish off Theo and Mariska. They're about to do so, when more military arrives, giving Theo and Mariska a chance to run. He finally finds Key and her baby near Luke, who is trying to convince them of his good cause, when a bomb goes off in the building, ending his life. Theo grabs Key and the baby, and escorts them out, as everyone in the building is awed by the baby. When they are stopped by the fishes, they also let them pass. The soldiers who enters notice the baby too, and starts yelling to stop the fire, so they can let them pass. As they walk away, everyone outside stare at them in shock, but the fire resumes, after the trio is far enough from the building. They are reunited with Mariska, who finally takes them to an underground passage, where their boat is waiting for them. After refusing to join them, Mariska pushes the boat and sends them to the sea, until they make it to the buoy. While waiting, Key notices blood on the boat, and Theo tells him it's his, and that he's been shot. When the baby starts crying, Theo teaches her how to calm her down. Key decides then, that she will call her daughter, Dylan, after Theo's child. It is then that Theo loses consciousness, and perhaps even passes away, exactly as the tomorrow arrives, to take Key and Dylan to safety. I hope you enjoy another episode of our movie recap. Until next time.